Thanks, Stella. Good morning and good afternoon to everybody online today. Great to see you all again. Some fantastic points raised there in the introduction, Stella. We're going to get stuck straight in today, addressing some of those. Joining me, as Stella said, we have two fantastic directors in Roy and Jita. Welcome, gentlemen. Great to see you both.
Good afternoon, Paul. Good afternoon, Roy.
Hi, Jita. Hi, Paul. Thanks. Another wonderful session.
Well, the pressure's on you two, because I tell you what, I've worked with both of you for some time now. Roy, I'm really particularly interested in your approach and your insight, because you deal with so many clients on a daily basis over so many years, and you've shared a lot of your personal stories with me about how you first started building your business and your plan. So I want to hear from you about that and those great insights to your clients. And Jita, I work with you, it feels like every second day on our group strategy, and get great insights from you as well. So I think the people on the end of the line today are going to learn a lot from two successful business people, directors who are both writing and helping people with their plans and reviewing their own. In other words, eating their own cooking every day. So I'm looking forward to today, gents. No pressure, but I hope it's excellent.
We look forward to sharing, Paul.
Fantastic. Okay, could we move on, please, Stella? First and foremost, a little bit about the RJS group. For those of you who haven't worked with us in the past, we're at 10 locations across Victoria, over 100 staff and 35,000 happy clients, and growing rapidly, which is fantastic. How do we do that? If we could move on to the next slide. First and foremost is we put you, our client base, at the center of everything we do. And very, very simply, focus on you and surround you with a team of specialists and experts to help you achieve your goals. And one of those, as we're talking about today, is how do we start a business plan? And we'll get some great insights from directors to address that. Thanks, Stella. For everybody online today who've been to one of our live and interactive webinars in the past, you'll know that today is general in its nature. There will be no advice given, certainly no personal advice. I do encourage everybody online today to take advantage of this opportunity to reach out to anybody from RJ Sanderson. The whole team's here to help. So you will be able to send questions in during today. Down the bottom of your screen, there's a question and chat answer. The team and I will address those during today's webinar. Thank you to everybody who sent them in prior. But if you do have something of more personal nature, would like to reach out and discuss something offline, as I said right from the start, the whole RJ Sanderson team is here to help. So please feel very free to pick up the phone, drop an email, send a text, reach out to us, and we can certainly start that personal discussion offline and help you achieve your goals and dreams. Thanks, Stella. Before we get stuck in, guys, we want to know a little bit more about who's on the end of the computer. It's great that Zoom lets us travel around the world, around the nation. We've done lots and lots of these webinars. We've helped and engaged with thousands and thousands of people over the last 6 months, and the feedback has been sensational. It's been great. And thank you to everybody who helped us to build this continual content of work. Today, we're going to ask a little bit about you so we can make sure we can personalize today's webinar. We've got 3 key questions, and we just want to know a bit about you. They're very simple. If you could please take the time just to tick the answers, we'll give you a couple of seconds. The more people that do it, the more personalized we can make it. So question 1 today is some attendee. Oh, they're all on the one there. Attendee information. Question 1. Which best describes you? You're the most important thing about today, most important people here. Are you a startup or you're an existing business? If you could just tick one of those boxes, that would be fantastic. Obviously, that will change and dictate the way Jita and Roy share some experiences and some stories. If we could move on to question 2, these should all be very simple, guys and girls. Complete the statement below. When it comes to business planning, I have never created one, or I'm currently operating off a plan. And by operating, we don't mean have you done one and put it in the drawer, but are you actually referring to and looking at it on a regular basis? Does it help you keep track of how you're going? And the third question today, what industry do you operate in? This is, if it's not there, ladies and gents, there is another option, but just as a best guess would be okay with this. Building, manufacturing, construction, hospitality and tourism, professional services, medical or healthcare, retail, education, or other. Again, if you could just pick the most appropriate, that would be great. How are we looking, Stella? Have we got a good range?
So far, we have 50% of our attendees that have already voted in.
Fantastic.
We also encourage. Oh, I'm sorry. Go on.
We'll give them a couple more seconds. What else were you encouraging, Stella?
We also encourage everyone who keyed in other or chose other for the business industry to chat with us what industry they currently operate in. That will give us more insight.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Okay, we might pull up the results now, please. How are we looking? Okay, 70% are operating as an existing business. Fantastic. We can talk a lot about that. The 30% that are a startup will certainly address your ideas and questions and queries as well. Not surprisingly, 73% of people online haven't operated under a business plan before. That is very normal. 30% are currently working at one, which is fantastic. That's much higher than what we see generally. So well done to everybody doing that. Industries, the leading industry looks to be professional services, which is great. A bit in building, some in hospitality. I understand that hospitality industries and tourism would be very much feeling the pinch today. I hope you guys are okay. Education, others pretty big as well, but professional services seems to be the largest one there, which certainly gives us some insights to who we're talking to. Thank you very much for everybody taking the time to do that. Let's get stuck into the body of the presentation. The first slide we're going to address really talks to the point about why a business plan. If any of you have children at home, you'll know this is one of the first questions we learn to ask when our little bundles of joy turn 2. It becomes why? It's a great skill. It gives you a real insight or a foundation to start to understand and motivate you to the next steps. As we grow older, we stop asking this, and in fact, we stop moving towards why and start asking what and how. So it's a great reminder to when we're thinking about planning, let's simplify it and go back to why. It'll give us the motivation and insights that we need to get going into a plan. Jita, I'll hand over to you to start. This is a great little list here to really understand why we need a plan.
I was having a bit of a chuckle there, Paul, when you said
I know.
I have a 3.5-year-old little girl who is very much at the why stage. So perhaps
don't let her forget it.
There's a business plan, even as you're talking, it gives many, many benefits in different ways. You know, when we talk about, or you hear very commonly as business owners or people looking at entering into business, you know, an opportunity to work on your business, or are you working in your business? So if you have a new idea, it gives a great opportunity to really set the foundations. Is this idea something that can come to fruition and success later down the track? And if you're an existing business, it really creates a great opportunity to focus on your business. And as any business owner would understand, the time that we get to spend on our business tends to be less and less and less. So just even the sheer fact that people are on this webinar today, I thank you and commend you for joining us today, because it's the first step in terms of being able to start to consider your business and work on your business. So that's the first thing I'd like to say. In terms of the opportunity for people to do a business plan, the value that we find many times with our clients is the opportunity to bring your idea or your business, your passion, your views to life. And there's a significant power in visualization. And just simply going through the process step by step, and there's many steps we're going to go through over the next few slides, that actually creates the opportunity for someone to act. And that those first steps of considering a business plan, otherwise known as strategic thinking in the technical sense, and then starting to move into execution planning, which we'll cover on a little bit later on, is significantly important. And then the beauty of what we're covering off today is that it is quite simple. And so we've started here, alignment and simplicity. We really do believe that, I think it was Steve Jobs that said simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. And so by going through a simple process with some goal setting, starting with goal setting, SMART goals preferably, really creates an opportunity to go through a structured process that will lead to an outcome that will put you in the best chance of success.
Jay, just before you move on, could I get you to expand on SMART goals, just if some people haven't heard or used that acronym in the past?
Yes, certainly. SMART goals: specific, you're testing me now, specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-bound. And for a lot of business owners or individuals, creating or articulating your goals is actually really quite hard. It's one of the hardest areas in our experience to really identify clear and measurable goals.
Absolutely. And for everybody at home, I'll make sure that acronym and explanation is in our post-event comms as well, along with a heap of other resources. But it's a great start, Jeet. You're right. Oh,
I was just going to lead on from that in terms of once you've had an opportunity to have a conversation, and sometimes talking to someone else, certainly Len, talking to people to help you articulate your SMART goals is highly valuable as well. Reaching out to one of the RJS professionals or whoever that may be. And then really starting, as you see, the next point there is an opportunity to really identify what your objectives are. And goals and objectives are different, but more particularly strategies. So understanding the activities that you do or you're intending to do to achieve your goals aligns to an objective. And so when, most people are busy and they're doing things, their actions or steps, and we think we're doing the right things. But when we get an opportunity just to stop for a moment and think about the actions that we're undertaking, and do they support where we want to go, you'll be quite surprised that a lot of business owners end up finding out that a lot of the activities or some of the activities may not really be supporting to what they're trying to achieve.
Yeah, it's a common pitfall when we speak to our clients. It's busy being busy.
Yes.
Yeah. Hey, Roy, how are you?
Yeah, good, Paul. Yeah, I agree with what Jita has just said, and I just wanted to underline a couple of points. When it says the whole team, now this process applies to a mum and dad business or a person that's got 100 team members. Even a mum and dad business needs to align and make sure they're on the right journey and they're together. So it does apply. And I noticed with the hundreds of people that register this, and I look through the list, there's some who are small businesses with only 2 or 3 running it, and there's others that are quite large. So it applies to everybody, this process. And the other thing, and I know we do a lot of these webinars, trying to do one every second week and 2 this week. And I don't want to sound like a broken record for those that are on more than one, but writing the goals down and having the business plan written, because I actually believe everybody who goes into business has a business plan. The faults are often it's just in the head, and that's not a proper business plan. Yeah. So writing it down, this resource is a very good resource to make sure it's written down.
Absolutely. In my definition of the whole team, I make sure that it includes who I think is the most important part of any business plan is your market, your client base, your current clients in the future. If you can engage with them, they know what you do and why they should be working with you as well. So absolutely, it gets everyone on the same page.
Well, I made a note. I think it was 70% of the attendees today are existing business owners, and business planning for a new business or an existing business are equally as important, we
Correct.
Believe. And particularly for, or not particularly, but for existing business owners, some of the other challenges that comes with an existing business compared to a new business is that of team. So where we talk about the engagement of the whole team on the journey. And so by articulating the destination and articulating the objectives and the strategies that all support where we're trying to go, actually significantly supports the business and the team to achieve that destination. It's the difference, I believe, of, what do they say? Is the wind at your back or is the anchor at your feet?
Very nice. Very nice. So look, I think we've covered some really great why statements, and these are things that everybody can understand. But those of you who are more numerical focused, and I know Roy will love this next slide, here's some numerical facts. If you can't get the why right, if that doesn't motivate you enough, here's some facts. In the first 3 years, 60% of businesses will fail without a plan. 44% of them will suffer poor strategic management. 40% will have inadequate cash flow, and 33% will suffer a trading loss. Now, none of those numbers sound great, or none of those outcomes sound fantastic. And you guys know that they can be addressed by planning.
What's that? Was it Benjamin Franklin said that if you fail to plan, you're planning to fail?
Yeah.
And one of the, you want to give yourself the best chance of success.
Yeah.
The absolute best chance of success. Don't become one of these statistics. And I know a majority of the people on today are existing businesses, but these issues that occur, and it says here within 3 years, it actually occurs for existing operating businesses as well. Okay. And these issues actually occur for scaling and large businesses can come up. So for those existing business owners on the line today, planning is significantly important to navigate all those challenges that occur more than we would like it to happen.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Roy?
I agree with Jita. We started our business 27 years ago, and we did have a plan, and we wrote it out. It wasn't a one-page plan at that time, but we would not be where we are today if we had not reviewed that plan every 12 months Sometimes, due to circumstance, might have been every 2 years, but reviewing parts of the plan are pretty important. And I think from a recommendation, any person in business, you'll see shortly the one-page plan, parts, components of it can be reviewed monthly, 3-monthly, quarterly, annually. But it certainly is suitable for existing businesses, not just new businesses.
Absolutely. Now, it is easy to concentrate on the scary things. These are the facts. Businesses fail without a plan. You're walking into unknown territory. But the flip side of that is the fact is success leaves clues as well. So there's plenty we can learn from people who are doing this really well already. I know you two gentlemen share this all the time. But let's move on to the next slide and start to discuss and discover how people and how businesses are doing it and what they do to get it right. As I said before, success leaves clues also. So there's plenty for us to learn from here. The one-page business plan, what are they and how are people doing this really well now? Jita?
I think it's a great quote, Paul. Success leaves cues. And the questions being posed here, and the presentation will be given to everyone or the attendees and after this presentation. I was reading it just before the session, and even thinking about our own business, each one of these questions is a really simple but quite a hard question to answer. But they actually frame each other very nicely. And the reason why I say that is because when we say success leaves clues, sometimes looking at those that have walked before us, created opportunities, done things well, actually enlightens us to make our journey a little bit easier. So, seeking out to your RJS professionals or whoever you may talk to is a great opportunity there as well. But, starting with the great brands don't please everyone. For mature businesses, we tend to find over a period of time, we tend to create our own little pocket, or we identify where we're best to play in. And so the great businesses of the world or the great brands of the world really start to define or figure out, and hopefully earlier in your journey, the better you'll be, as to who your clients actually are. Who are those people that value what you do, why you do it, and then equally for yourself, your own passion to deliver what it is that you do to that segment of clients.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Roy, did you have anything to add?
No, I think probably every business is passionate. You tend not to go into business if you're not passionate. And talking about not trying to please everybody, if you look at what Wesfarmers own, they're an organisation on the stock exchange, and they have Bunnings, but they have Target, Kmart, Officeworks, Geeks to You is what they own. There's just so many brands that they've taken their business and went, we can't do all this under one name. We actually have to separate this into separate business modules, if you like, companies, even though they're owned by the one organisation. So identifying your customer and targeting the customer, I think, is very important. And that I use Wesfarmers like at the one of the biggest organisations, but it applies to somebody running a very small business. I think it's crucial.
Absolutely. For me, both those points really drive into point number 3 there. What drives profitability? That you don't want that to be misinterpreted as to be a harsh business, but it is a reality. And the next point covers it. If you do more of what more of your customers need, you will be profitable, but you get to have that real enjoyment and provide great services and products and experiences as well, which just drives profit. It's a great way to look at your planning. And I think you mentioned that, Jita. If you don't review that, you can miss the point and just focus on the wrong areas.
Yeah, no, there was a comment I heard the other day. What's it called? Pareto principle, the 80-20 rule.
Yep.
So for existing businesses, as an example, doesn't quite necessarily play out exactly in every circumstance or case, but perhaps same business, different channels of products or services probably will largely land 80-20 in terms of 20% of your 80% of your output or outcome would tend to come from 20% of your activity, or said another way, 20% of your client market or segment, whatever it may be, will produce 80% of your results.
Yes.
And so when you start considering your business and the different service lines or segment lines, to think about that and have the opportunity to think and work with someone to help you put together the details will actually enlighten you in many ways as to where you should be putting more of your energy into.
Correct. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And Roy just gave a live example of how a big business does that in segments. Okay, let's move on to a little bit more about how the next slide talks us through a bit more of a structure of a one-page plan. We will go into more detail. But the key to business success always equals clear and defining strategy. You've really spoken about that very clearly at the start, Jeet. We haven't gone too much into strong culture. Did you want to address that a bit now?
Yeah, certainly. I think this is a really good slide, and the one before that we just touched on and the next few actually go really well hand in hand together.
Yeah.
And I say that because in consideration of this, I do see the questions in terms of business success, defining strategy, core culture, and brand promise as being really strong pillars that you can use or consider as you start to write your plan or review your plan, or whatever it may be. So if I can touch on, strategy, I see that as the why, what, how of what it is that you're doing, how you're going to achieve your goals. The culture is very much orientated as the team is another good word or another word. And that becomes the core of your business typically. And brand promise is along the lines of, who are your clients that you're trying to serve? For who are you trying to do, or what is it you're trying to do? What is that client segment? And so from a cultural perspective, it is critical for existing businesses to really understand your core. Like your body health, you need to have a strong core. And so from that as a pillar point, that it creates opportunities. You could look at famous businesses like Virgin, historically perhaps, great culture, great core, great opportunity to leverage from, which then flowed into the brand promise. So they all do relate and create opportunities for each other.
Absolutely. And the strong core culture, that's really the expectation or experience of internal and external. So that's what your team experience and feel, and what your market experience and feel, and your clients. Is that correct?
Absolutely. A strong core enables you to attract the right people that want to join you on your journey.
Yeah, real growth strategy. Now, Roy, I know you're very big on delivering brand promises. I'll hand this point to you, or please go back and cover anything that you'd like to comment on.
Yeah, on core culture first. A small organisation that might be a husband and wife, it's a lot easier because you should be aligned. But as the organisation becomes larger, you need to make sure that the culture within your team is aligned and that they're good, positive. You certainly don't want negativity, and you want them all aligned as to where the business is going. As far as brand promising is concerned, I was just going to share the RJS brand promise, which is take the stress out of tax. Has been our logo since day one, 27 years ago. We haven't shied away from it. That's our brand promise. And probably more recently, your business is our passion has been a secondary one that we have, as we've shifted a lot away from personal tax returns to business tax returns. So they're our two brand promises.
And how does that resonate with the market?
Well, I think from a tax return point of view, take the stress out of tax. There's a perception in the market that's individual tax returns, but we actually apply that to business tax returns, no matter how large the business is. And so it's from a marketing perspective, it's actually quite a difficult thing to make sure we're hitting the right mark, because we don't want to be seen as an iReturn organisation, although we do that. And as the market in our industry, RJS's industry, shifts to online, using people doing it themselves, using MyGov accounts, simple tax returns will disappear. We know that. So our brand and shift has been about making sure not everybody's going to do their own tax returns because of rental properties, investments, etc.
Yeah.
So it's challenging for our business, as it is for every business out there. Yeah. We all have those challenges as things shift and change in the market.
Correct. I love them because they're simple and sincere.
Just something that Roy mentioned, but applies to everyone in Victoria would experience this and know this more than the other states, is the environmental factors that start to impact the business. So even going through this process for an existing business, or a time such as now, as we're starting to come out of lockdown slowly, but we're nearly there, creates opportunities. This is also a significant opportunity. So, some of the keywords there: differentiating strategy. Sometimes that opportunity to be different to your market, or your competitors, I should say, can be quite hard. But different times, different opportunities will present themselves. And we've seen this quite a lot across our RJS clients. You know, you've heard of many stories of the alcohol distiller that moves into hand sanitizers. You've got builders moving into office supplies, or a whole range of manufacturing businesses changing. But you've also got opportunities from differentiating strategy as an example of distribution channels, as an example, you know, for businesses that used to have retail and moving online and having a great online experience. So this process, even if you're an existing business owner, is a great opportunity to always loop back in on, because your environment changes and new opportunities present themselves, and thus new strategies that will significantly support your success.
I think absolutely right. And and Roy, in your experience, when business owners do this, do you see an increase in energy as well? You know, business owners reconnect with their core business strategy. I think it's fantastic.
Absolutely. It very much in terms of reconnecting with their individual purpose.
Yeah.
100% agree. It creates energy.
Yeah, it's a great thing. Now, gents, if you don't mind, I'm going to just start to address a couple of questions before we move on. Adrian's just come up with a great one. At which point, it's a bit of a challenge, at which point prior to COVID did anyone ever plan for COVID and Vic lockdowns? He goes on to explain he's got a number of small businesses struggling with no support and no income. And Adrian, I understand completely. Our heart goes out to you. I think the best part of your question, or the one that we can address most, is at what point did anyone ever start planning pre-COVID? Who wants to take this?
I can comment on that. With the businesses that we've looked after, we do SWOT analysis when we're doing our 10-step program of mentoring, and I can't recall ever putting in a SWOT analysis that a threat was a pandemic of this nature.
Yeah.
Having said that, I have read very recently that the writing was on the wall. When we had SARS, there were world warnings that it was going to happen. I also read that a European soccer organisation actually took out insurance for a pandemic, and they got paid all their sponsorship money, and all their players got paid when the league was cancelled because of a pandemic. I would suspect nobody can get insurance now for a pandemic. It probably won't exist. But to Adrian's point, Adrian, I don't think anybody could have planned for this. I don't think it would have. The perception just wasn't there. And there are a number of businesses that have fallen through the cracks. I think the government attempted to do a good thing with what they did with JobKeeper and various grants, but sole traders left out of the loop in Victoria. And hopefully, now that we are just coming out of lockdown and a dozen days of double donuts, I think that we have got to hope that people get out there and start spending money, and that the confidence increases very quickly.
Yeah.
Can I just add to that question? I think that I use the example of the global financial crisis in 2008. Oddly, perhaps now looking back, and hindsight's a wonderful thing, right? Businesses thinking about, is there another financial crisis around the corner, was a conversational question that wasn't actually asked that often. So the Australian businesses, global businesses, and how they manage their balance sheet, or how their business would hold up if circumstances became quite dire, we have noticed across the general client base is that most businesses became stronger from a general financial health perspective, but absolutely no one that we're aware of, that I'm aware of, had pandemic there, you know, for the extreme case that we've all gone through. And I think that will actually lend itself moving forward. Absolutely, this is a world that we're a part of. And guess what's going to be a part of every part of the business planning moving forward is, how would you deal with the pandemic?
Yeah, I agree, because we have seen businesses who had catastrophe planning put in place that have continued to do well, and that's only a reflection of what they learned from history. So, Adrian, I know many of the things you're talking about here are Victorian government based, and let's hope governments around the world do learn. But as business owners, we can learn from lots of these things. So, and I know that Roy and his team will be helping you through that. There is another question here, Roy, that I'm sure you'll want to jump onto straight away. From anonymous, sorry, I can't address the name because it hasn't been given. This person talks about that they've met their accountant once a year. Service is great, generally historical. Does RJS provide business advice support to keep me honest on delivering my business plan in a proactive manner?
Yeah, good question. the average person comes to us to have their accounts done, tax returns done, and we try and make sure that they're set up on Xero or MyOb, although we prefer Xero to be live accounting so that you actually know where you stand. We do have a business mentoring program, and that program is available on our website. What we do is we set out a timeline with the business, because every business is going to be different. We either have very quick half-hour weekly meetings, of which I've had a number of businesses on over recent times. We set up, it can be a 2-weekly, 3-weekly, 4-weekly meeting. And in each meeting, we go through a certain part of the mentoring program. So we are progressing forward on various things. The one-page business plan and this business plan concept is one of those sessions that we will do to fine-tune it. That doesn't mean you get the whole thing done in the hour or the half-hour or the 2-hour appointment. What it does do is it sets us some guidance, fine-tunes some things, and then an action list between now and the next meeting. So certainly we're very big on doing that. And just to add to that, right at the moment, you can actually get that mentoring session, which over time, if you're doing monthly or fortnightly meetings, it might be over time, but it's valued at somewhere close to $4,000. You can actually get that for free if you go to the state government grants website and apply for it. And they'll give you a list of mentors. If we have an office near your location, we're on that list. One of, I think, about 15 or 18 accounting firms in Victoria that's been on the panel. So you can select us to do that, or any accounting firm that's got experience in it to do that mentoring program. And I might take this opportunity, only because a question came in, on 3AW from Thursday, which is tomorrow. 3AW and RJS have actually joined forces, and we are giving away one free mentoring session to a business, a 3AW listening business. So that's another way to get a free mentoring session as well.
Yeah, great. I think that's a good point, mate. Adrian's gone on to talk about a couple of other things where he's having trouble. Adrian, I'm sure Roy will be able to help you out and address some of those really specific things offline. There's some good stories there, Roy. I'll make sure you see those questions from Adrian. And thank you for Anonymous for that question too. Okay, let's move on to a little bit more. Let's start to get into how we can start to help ourselves at home. So where do you start? One-page business plan, it doesn't need to be, as you said right from the start, Roy, 30 or 40 pages long. It needs to be something we can see. I personally love a one-page because it's simple to visualize. Everyone learns a bit differently, but I like it because it's easily referred to and moved and can live with you as you and your business. Jita, where's the starting point? What do we do? What should we do now? This, like you said before, step one's turning up to this and speaking to you guys. What do we do next? What can we take home?
Well, I heard recently that if you want everyone on the same page, you first must start with the page.
Good.
So the one-page plan is a great place to start. And the best place to start would certainly be downloading from the website, the RJS website, or the email that will come out after this. But certainly writing your name on the plan. The physical act of starting to consider and do or think about some of the topics that we're talking through today is actually a significant step moving forward. It's no difference to your health, trying to improve your health or anything along those lines. So where to start? You're already on the right track and starting on the journey that we're about to put forward today. What you see in the on the screen here does look a little bit busy, but it is much simpler once you get a copy, printed on A3, and we'll be talking through a few of the points over the next few slides moving forward. But fundamentally, what you see here is the why, the who, the what, the how, what you should do, what you shouldn't do. And another point that I would like to add here is, as simple as this plan is, when you get a copy, or as you can read it on screen right now, this plan is absolutely fantastic to use for a new business idea, a small business, a mum and dad business, retail, any form of industry, and including all the large businesses as well. So this plan comes off someone by the name of Vern Harnish of Scaling Up is the common thread of where this plan comes from. And so these plans are used for companies like GE, the Australian IT firm, I always say the name wrong, Atlassian, use a one-page plan. Here in Australia, Red Balloon, the gifting online gifting website, including the RJS group as well. So it is highly applicable for a range of different businesses. And I think over the next few slides, we'll be touching on the various components of the slide. the one-page plan. But where to start? Certainly get a copy of the plan and work your way through it.
Absolutely. So just so everyone's aware, the plan along with multiple resources will be sent out post-comms, but you'll also have a link to, as Judy said, the RJS webpage that has enormous amount of background to everything we've spoken about today and lots of others, but it's a great starting point. Roy, you had something to add there?
Yeah, I know it looks a little busy. Jita, I was going to ask you, how often do you update this and review this plan? What would you recommend?
Absolutely, the ideal would be quarterly. You are looking at this plan. So the way the plan is actually structured is on the left-hand side of the plan. So it's an A3 page, press printed, and if you fold it in half, you've got two A4 pieces of paper. The left-hand side of the screen of what you're reading, that part of the plan tends to be reviewed perhaps only once a year. The right-hand side of the plan is very now orientated. What are the immediate steps that you need to take, or the steps over the next 90 days more particularly, 90 days being a quarter. So therefore the plan, to operate this plan and making a living, breathing document, which is one of the other beauties of the one-page plan, that actually gets used, it actually comes alive and becomes, not something that sits in the top drawer, is it's not that hard to review it. It's not a cumbersome process that it requires a whole day out of the business every quarter or something along those lines. So once a year in a detailed process is fantastic, and certainly quarterly, looking at the right-hand side, more particularly the plan.
The thing I love about one page is it brings into the aspect of, for all business owners, agility. Now, yes, we've had immediate change from COVID or a pandemic, but technology is growing, our markets are growing, consumer requirements are growing at a pace we've never seen before. So agility is becoming more apparent as a skill for a business owner than ever before, and will continue to increase. So the ability to do it quarterly or even more is great.
I might just add, we had a question from Adrian about his business that was hammered due to COVID, one of the first to close down, one of the last to reopen, fell through the cracks, can't get JobKeeper or cash flow boost. All the worst possible scenarios has hit Adrian. I know the case very well because Adrian did talk to me about it. But Adrian, to you and to any business out there, this is exactly what you need to do. I know you're not 100% sure when you're going to open and how you're going to go about getting customers when you do open, but in your business, this is what you need. You need to almost start from scratch, and this will be one of your starting points. And you should apply for the mentoring program through the state government, because I think you'll get it. And that's not going to give you dollars in the bank, food on the table, but it's going to be a starting point out of COVID, because I know you'll hit a lot harder than anybody else. And I know that because I looked at it, because I was asked to look at it by Adrian to think it can't be right, but unfortunately he did fall through the cracks.
You just brought up a great point for Adrian and others out, and I know you've spoken passionately about this to me in the past. You've got a fantastic mentoring program, but you also do recommend for business owners out there to grab a mentor and speak to someone. It helps keep them accountable. And it addresses a bit of Anonymous's question there. How do I keep myself accountable?
Yeah, I believe that every business should have a mentor. I certainly have throughout my whole career, and it hasn't been the same person all the time. It changes from time to time. If it's not going to be the accountant or the advisor or the financial planner, maybe somebody within your industry, maybe somebody who knows your business but also is good at business. Don't go and pick somebody who's not savvy with business or running a business. So you need to pick somebody savvy, but that can be it could almost be a competitor in your industry that you tee up with, so you can talk about your issues. And it happens in the accounting field a lot. The number of networking groups where it's just the heads of accounting firms, we do it a lot to talk about each other's issues.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point, because no matter your industry, particularly if you're a smaller business, and this is one of the advantages, is the power of picking up the phone, calling perhaps a competitor or a larger competitor, significantly larger competitor. Human nature is to help people, absolutely, and particularly now more so ever than before. So if there is a business that you look up to or aspire to, or there's an individual that's walked in the shoes that you're following, then don't be afraid to pick up the phone and give them a call and explain your situation or circumstance and ask them some questions, because more often than not, most people do help.
Absolutely. Now we're going to get stuck into some more detail. I've just had a question pop up. Again, I don't know who this is from, but we could address it right now. My business is poised for growth. How do I finance my growth? Should I be using private equity, new partners, or business lending, what are the implications? I think the simple answer is, without going through the plan, you won't know. But did you want to give a more detailed response, Roy?
Yeah, I think that that's a general question, and that business, I don't know whether it's a small business or a large business, and it's going to have completely different responses. And I don't know about how much cash flow, whether you do private equity, new partners, or business lending. New partners can work, but do you want to give away the business or sell the business with a new partner because you need money? I think what you really need to do is sit down. That's actually going to be a starting point or part of your mentoring program to look at your cash flow and to see what direction you're going to go in. Again, that question is ideal, driven towards the mentoring program.
Absolutely. Okay, thank you. Let's move on to start to understand, this is where the rubber hits the road. This is what we do now when we're building a plan. Here's some more specifics here. So for everybody at home hasn't taken a note yet, I hope you have, but now it's really time to start to put some notes around the presentation. So the core of it, the purpose, the values, and the competencies. We've talked about the importance of a why, but Jita, do you want to cover off how this actually works when we get to the planning stage?
Yes, certainly. So the three items here, purpose, values, and competencies, fits along the left-hand side of the page, the one-page plan that you saw earlier. I will just say the left-hand side of the page is the part of the page that takes a little longer to consider and complete, because some of the questions may be not as natural to answer. The way the questions will be asked of you or framed of you will require you to really deeply consider. And it comes back to what we started chuckling about right at the beginning. It's really asking the question, why? Why does a business exist, and why should anyone care? As said by Simon Sinek, which is where the purpose and the why statement really comes from. And I believe one of those Simon Sinek video links will be on the RJS website as well.
Correct.
And so for RJS, it's to make the difference to our clients' lives. An example for Disney may be happiness, or Starbucks, a third place between work and home, I think theirs is. And the reason why a why is really important for any business is because your why statement fundamentally becomes your, is it North Star? Like your guiding North Star. And a lot of the values or principles that you then instill, not only personally, but then through your team and your culture and your clients, really will start to align, and you'll start to see that come alive through your business operations. So starting with purpose is extremely important. Perhaps one of the hardest questions to answer, I will say, is fundamentally built around, why do you exist? Why do you do what you do? Why should anyone care?
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned Starbucks. You and I were talking about something earlier in a business case, and I heard the CEO of Starbucks talk about one of the reasons they survived COVID is their purpose was so strong. And he stated one of the purposes that they really live off is one cup, one person, one community at a time. 350,000 stores around the world, but they get that granular in their purpose. And he strongly believes that granular focus is what got them through. So very powerful if you get that right. The values.
Values. I have a 3.5-year-old, and as Paul and Roy know, I have a 6-month-old as well. So values is really well considered like parenting, and that's why I have a bit of a chuckle there. Parenting being largely driven off a handful of rules that you instill in your kids, and they're rules that you repeat and you repeat and you repeat and you repeat like a broken record. And then hopefully one day it starts to pay off in terms of how the child behaves and within the framework that you're setting in that home or that environment. The same applies in business as well. So the values really starts to drive the rules of the business, but really it's a guiding principle. And they're principles that should be quite strong. They are quite unique to the individual or the business. If you're a new business, you might not have the business values per se quite set up, and that's an opportunity to create your values or your rules or your guiding principles. And if you're an existing business that's been around for a little while, I think they say anything after 3 years, actually, your values are already set. And so the questions to ask yourself around what is your DNA or your business DNA. Some businesses may want to be like a Google, all fun and exciting and bright colors or whatever it may be, the old Virgin example. And then other businesses may be quite considered, quite a little bit more polished, or service is more orientated or whatever it may be as well. So values are those guiding principles. They are your DNA. They do start to set the culture and the tone of the business, and very linked to your why and extremely important. And because these are a little bit different in terms of considering for a usual business owner, that's why the questions sometimes can be quite hard to actually work your way through. But once you've set this, your purpose, your values, and even your core competencies largely, although environmental factors may impact that, they don't really change. You know, Jita is Jita, Roy is Roy, you know, RJS is RJS from a core perspective.
Yeah, correct.
Interesting that over our 27-year history, we have added core values to our organisation that we've assessed how we have changed. Now, on the one-page plan that's going to be distributed post communications, you'll be asked these questions, and they might be quite hard for you to come up with your values, but that doesn't mean you can't bounce them around one of our team members to come up with them. Just to share very quickly what RJSs are, and these started 27 years ago. Honesty and integrity from an accounting firm, that's top of our list. Education and learning, well, that backs up that if we want to make a difference to every person we encounter, then we have to have education and learning. Positivity and passion. Client interests are paramount. Now, they are the first 4 that we had. We've added 2 over the 27-year journey, so they haven't changed dramatically. We've added lifelong relationships, and that's not just our clientele, but that's also our team members. And on top of this whole list, number 1 value that we added some years ago now is family, because we at RJS treat our team members as number 1, and we treat them as a family, and we treat our clients as a family. And whether that's our service pillars, we often refer to the RJS family of being, yes, we're accountants and tax consultants, but we do loans and finance, and we do wealth management, and we do audit, and we do legal, all these other services. And so that's why we put family number 1, for all those reasons, that those are the services within the RJS family and what we do value.
Yeah, and they stand strong, which is why you continue to grow, and the client feedback's fantastic. Gents, I'm considerate of time. Competencies are normally very easy for businesses to identify. I think our key recommendation is that know what your strengths are, set boundaries, but don't define them to limit them. I think my only feedback here would be ask your clients what you think their strengths are as well, because it's a great chance to get feedback, and they might be thinking something else, and it'll give you the chance to revisit and strengthen those. If we could move on, Stella, please. Let's start to think about who else is in the sandbox with us. Who else is our competitors? What's their market look like? We'll get on to these next 3. Jita, before I start talking about the sandbox, and sorry, I should have passed to you.
That's all right. No, but you've led the right way anyway. It really is a great consideration of, who is your market? Where are they? Who are you defining as being a part of your business or your clients? And, the analogy of kids in school, or the sand pit and so forth, people will tend to, or kids or family or friends will tend to be attracted to your pocket that you define and decide what that may be. And the same applies in business. So the sandbox is crucial because it does set the tone of where you're starting to position your business, your clients, where they're going to be, what channels, what products, what it is that they value. And you probably start to get a bit of a sense now. That's why the questions a little bit earlier really do flow into some of these other questions as we go down.
Yeah, okay. Now, Roy, brand promise?
Yeah, look, I did a quick look at who's on this, the many people that are on this webinar, and I can tell you that as I scrolled down the list, I could almost get excited. Some of the people in tourism industry that's been hammered, getting back on their feet, those in medical, and a few others, you could get very excited about putting together your brand promise, because I actually don't think you've thought about it as much. You've just, in business, you've rolled along, and now's the time. I mentioned take the stress out of tax earlier, and your business is our passion. But I think this is the time for business to do this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can I just add a couple other examples that people may resonate with? A lot of people use Apple because it's big business. Everyone hears it. We see their marketing a lot. Apple's one of the ones originally was thinking differently. And BMW, theirs was at one stage the ultimate driving machine. And as Roy said, RJS, take the stress out of tax. So the brand promise is crucial, and a great opportunity to position your business in your sandbox that you would then get to leverage from. And to Roy's point, coming out of COVID, a part of the 10 steps recovery, an opportunity to really focus on what your brand promise is and the value you add to your client segment is a great opportunity to leverage from.
Yeah, fantastic. Couldn't agree more. KPIs are something that, again, generally people struggle to get around. I think there's something to remember that there's an enormous amount of freedom in structure if you get it right. I think that's something that people forget, that it gives you the ability to leverage and plan more. So KPIs aren't necessarily a big stick. It's a chance to put structure and foundation, and people can leverage off those. So it's a really good and important part of the planning. Thanks, Stella. Okay, how do we move to our next part of this? BHAG. Jeet, I know you love this, and I know we have them when we talk about this regularly, and I think it's a great place to be because it excites everyone in the room. It's something we love to share with our clients as well, and it excites everybody when we get that. So talk to me about a BHAG.
BHAG, I do love this, Paul, as you know, big, hairy, audacious goal. It's been coined off Jim Collins, the author of Good to Great. And I do know here it says a target so big that it's scary. And I think the particular points here is that setting a BHAG really creates an opportunity that aspires or inspires your team and also motivates. And that's what the BHAG is really designed around. It is, and then therefore, an opportunity to achieve much bigger things. And so I think it was Bill Gates that said something along the lines of, most people overestimate what they can do in a year, but underestimate what they can do in 10. Yep. So, the other, you shoot for the stars and land, you may land on the moon. So as businesses, as individuals, we actually have a significant opportunity, but more particularly, our abilities to achieve great things is really quite high. JFK said, we will land on the moon by the end of the decade. I know, Paul, you said recently, was it Elon Musk's is, we will land on Mars, or?
Yes, yeah, he's gone
something to that effect. Yeah. Once you start setting a BHAG, something that, hey, it is a stretch, and that's why the word scary comes up, because it's not designed to be simple. It's designed to push you and motivate you and create innovation or move you to new market segments or opportunities. Well, guess what? It tends to happen.
Yeah.
And I think that's the really opportunity of setting a big, hairy, audacious goal. And it's designed to be something 10 to 15 years. The exact time frame doesn't necessarily matter. It's really about what is that future point actually look like.
Yeah, it's about creating action and dare to dream. It creates excitement, like you said, Roy.
Yeah, and also that can change from time to time. Sharing the RJS experience, if I may, and I'm sure Jita won't mind, because we do put this out publicly. But at one point, our BHAG was to list on the stock exchange. Now that's no longer our BHAG, but that doesn't mean it won't happen. It's just not necessarily the BHAG. We just felt that's maybe not the BHAG that we need, but it still could happen as we grow our business. I remember many years ago, our BHAG was actually to be in the top 50 accounting firms in Australia. I mean, how audacious would that be? We started from 0 clients and to believe that we could become in the top 50. And when we got to that, and we had, I think we're currently at 44 in Australia, our BHAG now is to be the top 10. And you think, that's ridiculous. How could we be the top 10 in Australia? But that's what a BHAG is. Set it big.
Yeah, I think it's fantastic, and you get there. Now, on a more personal level, Melbourne University released some studies last year that showed that at an individual level, if you're thinking 10 years in advance, so your BHAG's 10 to 15, if you're thinking 10 years in advance, and that's just thinking, you will be 3 times more financially secure than not at retirement. So that's not even putting it down. That's not putting it in a plan. Amazing what the human body can do if you start to think about it. And that's just at a personal level. Imagine if we get it down in a structured plan. So how do we start to make this happen? You spoke about a time frame. If we go to the next slide, Stella, please. This just shares a little bit about a time frame. And Jeet's covered this off, but obviously it doesn't happen overnight, and I don't think we should think it does.
Just on that next slide, the one that had just here, the mountain, I think that setting the BHAG, what this creates is an opportunity, what do they say? How to eat an elephant? One piece at a time.
Yeah.
So once you set that motivating picture, that the articulation of where you're heading or what's aspirational, then actually chunking it down backwards to how you achieve it. So it becomes your guiding star. And particularly, I will say this, out of the COVID experience, when there's so much uncertainty, team members, business owners, business partners, and potentially even clients, because it's so far out, it is really valuable to set something that people can actually focus on. So, to focus on the next quarter, to some respects, appreciating out of Victoria may be a bit challenging, but generally speaking, some operating businesses can focus 90 days at a time, one step, one step, one step. And then you'll see on the picture here is the base camps. Broadly speaking, over the next 10 years, these are the critical milestones that we need to hit over this period of time, and doing those quarterly reviews or connecting with your professional advisors or RJS accountants just to make sure that you're on track.
Yeah,
and between year 3 and 4, and this is one I love probably a little bit more, is they're called a WAG, W-A-G, otherwise known as a wild ass guess, because who knows what's happening between year 3 and 5. But broadly, we do know where we want to go. We do know what we need to do. We don't know the operating environment in between, but we can control what we can control in the short term, the next 90 days, the next 90 days, the next 90 days.
Yep. Something one of my mentors taught me, having this same discussion many years ago, when asked how do you eat an elephant, his answer was use a chainsaw. And his point was there's technology and there's tools and there's people who will help you get those little steps along the way. So don't be scared to put your hand up and ask for help. And RJ Sanderson is one of those resources. It's a chainsaw. It's how do we get it into small bite-sized chunks.
Apologies in the room to those who are animal lovers or vegans. Okay, we're just joking.
No elephants were harmed in this discussion. Absolutely. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, let's get into the next slide, which is our last one. This is how do we actually make it happen. Here's some great actions that you can put into place today. It's actions that we do inside RJ Sanderson weekly, regularly, quarterly, and it's what we coach our clients to do, and we see great success with. So, Jeet, what do we do? How do we bring this to life?
So similar of going back off the slide that was earlier, but the rock. So internally at RJS in the group, we call it, setting the rock, setting the next 90 days or the next 12 months. What are those big milestone and priorities? But actually, once you start to chunk it down, the real value, and I was really reflecting on this yesterday when I was thinking about today's presentation, is what do they say? The urgent is not important, and the important is not urgent. It was said by someone famous, I can't recall who, but just translating that a little bit, it is what tends to happen for most business operators, including myself and ourselves here, is that the urgent does always come up because that tends to be the things that you do every day. And the reason why we act on it, urgent has a consequence, an immediate consequence. A client or a customer calls up, needs something done. Can you get this to me ASAP? I need that done by next week, etc., etc. But the reason why setting rocks and milestones is really important is, pardon the pun, is because the urgent will get in the way of the big things that you need to do to get to where you want to go, which is your BHAG. So we call it rocks, breaking down where you want to go into quarterly priorities. And what I believe in for any operating business is to be one of the most important is actually it creates a set of accountability. And for most business owners that we've come across, how do you get everyone on the same page, the same journey, and how do you make people accountable so it doesn't all rest on one person or two people or the directors or the owners or the managers? How do you instill that in the entire organization?
Absolutely. Roy, did you have any comments on that?
No, in the interest of times, I just 100% agree. It's about prioritizing. Yep. That's really what you've got to do. And Jita commented earlier about working in your business or on your business. You need to make sure you actually are working on the business from time to time.
Absolutely. And those transparency, those rocks and demonstrable behaviors go through the rest of the business, including your client base. Okay, gents, we'll move on to questions now. We've got an enormous amount of questions coming through. I'm going to surmise a couple of them into one area, and it's just to let everybody at home know you're not alone. These questions are really normal, and a lot of them are coming through in the same vein. So I'll address to you first, Roy, since you're last to speak. and just to cover off a few questions here, how do we remove excuses? So how do we actually take the next step? So people are talking about the hurdles. They've tried this in the past. Things haven't worked for them. To address all of those, what do you suggest people do? Remove the excuses, set themselves up for success. How do we do that?
It's accountability, having a mentor, a business associate, somebody who's going to help you so that you become accountable for what you're doing.
Yep. Jita?
A slightly different lens, perhaps, on an answer on that is they say don't waste a crisis. Mm-hmm. Now, those in crisis right now, that may sound a bit harsh, but you don't want to wait until you're forced to have to change before you start to change. But unfortunately, a lot of people in Victoria, particularly, a lot of small businesses in a range of different industries are forced to change. So, that's no fault of any individual in this circumstance. Looking at a different lens on that is it creates an opportunity to you to think about your business differently or think about your future differently. So when I use the language, don't waste a crisis, perhaps where you sit right today or the thoughts that you're having about your business actually is a significant opportunity positively for you to think about your future differently and start taking those steps to map out, similar to the information before, the best chance of success moving forward, because the operating environment or the general environment is quite different from many people, many businesses.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot to consider if you want to personalize it. Okay, we're moving on to, so that's moved into a couple of different areas. We've got a question here. How best do we address our team? We need change. It's a bit open. I don't know what the change is and I don't know the business. But we've been through it. We've spoken to teams. We've been speaking to teams in different states. How best do we speak to a team to talk about change? I'm assuming that's what this person's after.
Yeah, so we find here at even our own business that this is something that we do need to review quite regularly or consistently, part of that quarterly or yearly process that I mentioned before. And what we found valuable is that at certain parts of the process, bringing the team onto the page in part of the discussion or just sharing the discussion or the journey or the action or the BHAG is actually one of the most important. So if you're a sole operator with a big team or whatever it may be, it doesn't really necessarily matter, is number one for the business owner, the person who's possibly mortgaged their home to start a business and otherwise, design your business, design your future. The one-page plan certainly helps with that. And then start sharing with the team consistently over and over and over again with where we're going.
Do you recommend getting the team involved in building the plan as well in certain stages?
There certainly are parts that the team should be involved.
Yeah.
There are parts of it, and it depends on the business or the circumstance, to be honest with you. So I've got my own personal view. But yeah, absolutely, the team do need to be involved at different stages of the process, or you can have the team a part of the entire process. Yeah. There's no right or wrong.
Yeah. I think the key is, though, there will be a vision and a reason for it and where you want to be. I think sharing the end destination or your very first point today, the purpose and why is paramount before you start the build. Is that, you agree?
Absolutely. And as a business owner, you need to take control and you need to share where the business is going. And I certainly believe that is a responsibility of the person who owns the business.
Yeah.
Which therefore translates to the team.
Yeah, and to add to what Jita has said, if you want to have change in the organisation, the more you involve the team, the more they'll embrace it because it's their change that they want. So that's a management idea.
Yeah, I actually think you can leverage off to that, which was a couple of questions down, but I'm going to put it together here because I think if you involve your client base in your market, you'll get bigger buy-in. And one of the questions here is, what's the best way to gain feedback or talk to your client or market? So have you guys done it in the past? Have you spoken to your market or your client base?
Yeah, well, we have done surveys out to our clients, which allows us to measure. And many of our clients who are on this webinar will know that we've done that, I think 3 times in the last 6 years. And we have another one planned for early 2021. We don't make them long surveys because our belief is that nobody likes a long survey. It'll be 10 to 12 questions. It'll take 2 minutes tops. And we're looking for a feedback and engagement on what our clients are thinking because it might not be necessarily what we're thinking. We think over COVID, we believe we did a fantastic job. Webinars, communications, newsletters, information within minutes or hours of it being announced by government. So we really stepped up. We think we did a great job, but we have to find out if that's the same perception for our clients.
Yeah. I know the team talked to me a lot about they value the ability to share client feedback at some of the management meetings as well. That's obviously a big part of what you put on every agenda. So that represents your core values, but you've made that part of your operational rhythm as well.
If I can share another, this is an example that we have within RJS, but I've borrowed this from another business, is having someone who's slightly removed from the business client relationship, but someone within the business that can call 10 or 15 or whatever percentage, just a handful of clients, and just simply asking them verbally and asking them a very simple set of questions is highly powerful, because two things. One is the opportunity for them to be heard by someone on the phone. People still like phone-to-phone contact. And the other one is they're talking to someone who is listening what they have to say, and they feel that they can actually say it because it's not going to upset the relationship between the customer and the business. Whether it be a travel agent, a builder, it could be any business. But hey, we know that person. We like the person, but hey, we wouldn't mind A, B, C, D, or E.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything you want to add, Roy?
No, 100% agree with what Jita has said.
Great. The questions are starting to all come in very familiar now. I think we've covered most of them. I'm very conscious of time. Adrian, thanks for sharing so much. Adrian's actually gone on to share that his dojos have recommenced as of Monday, which is great after 8 months out. Congratulations, Adrian and the team. Roy, would you feel comfortable sharing the dojo's name or webpage if people are out there, they want to support Adrian? Great business, being out of work for 8 months.
Yep. Adrian has a karate school. I don't actually know his business name, has operated as a sole trader, does need to, which is why he slipped through all the cracks, needs to restructure into a company. Had that conversation with Adrian. But Adrian, if you wanted to type in your business name, we'll give you a plug to everybody. Or Adrian, email me and we'll put a plug in our next newsletter.
Fantastic. Adrian's got a couple of questions here about structuring again too. Adrian, so please go to Roy direct. And it's Northern Goju Karate. Fantastic. So please look that up. But as we said here, Roy will give that a plug in the newsletter as well. So that's great to see small businesses, really fighting. Well done, Adrian. I've got another question here from A&M Baduza. What's your assumptions? How many time will we require to return to normal economy in Australia, specifically as a small entrepreneur? So what's the time frame for recovery?
I've got a thought process on that. Victoria, I'm going to assume that this business is in Victoria. If you look at how quickly other states in Australia recovered and that we actually got out of recession, we had 2 negative CPI rates. We're in recession. We're out of recession, despite the fact that Victoria was still in lockdown. I think Victoria is going to bounce back quite quickly. I think people are going to be confident that we won't have a resurgence, a stage 3. And boy, touch wood that we don't, because that will knock many of us for 6. And I think we're going to recover very quickly. That's my prediction on it.
Yep. It's gone on to specifically say South Australia. But I think for small entrepreneurs, we've seen this in a lot of our client base of you, Roy, there's opportunity. Entrepreneurs are really jumping in and scaling now. You'd agree if you see the right opportunity?
Absolutely. I think the environment has created, the unfortunate environment has created an opportunity where small businesses can compete with large businesses. Operating frameworks of businesses will have required to change, and that creates, again, opportunities for anyone to compete. And so many opportunities. Clients are buying more directly off larger businesses. You don't necessarily need to go through resellers or agents, as another example. A lot more in terms of online. And then in some businesses, relationships are even more important than ever before. So,
Absolutely.
For those that are very person-to-person orientated, which naturally gets affected in Victoria, still is an opportunity when you get to come out of lockdown, because people want that one-on-one relationship even more than before.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know a lot of the financial institutions are working towards getting criteria to make it easier to do business. So everyone wants to be successful this time. It's a global pandemic, and Australia and global economies are working together. So I think there's certainly opportunities there. I might call it an end there, ladies and gentlemen. Yep. Thanks, Adrian. Some more questions come through legislation. But I'm going to say thank you very much to everybody today. Thank you, Jita and Roy. Really appreciate your time. Thank you to everybody who joined us. As always, at our RJS Live and interactive webinars, we offer professional advice. Please reach out. We have a complimentary session with you. Roy and his team are very fantastic mentors and people who can really assist in answering more personalized questions that we can't do today. So please take the opportunity, reach out, pick up the phone, send us an email, come through us on the webpage. As I said earlier, there will be an enormous amount of resources coming out in post communications and will be available on the webpage. So again, thank you everybody. Thank you, Jay. Thank you, Roy. Thank you, Emily and Stella, working behind the scenes, bringing us live to everybody across Australia. And great to see you and talk to you all. Thanks for the questions. See you later, everybody. Have a great day.
Thanks, everybody.